1 million Cubs, good morning. Good morning. We've got a good one. You're going to have to do better. Good morning, 1 million Cubs. Good morning. That's the way to do it. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm John. I'm one of your community organizers. We have Kyle. We have Caitlin. We have Courtney. And everybody turn around and say hi to Nicole. She's our other organizer. She just got back from Europe. Hi, Nicole. Glad to have you back. If you could please take out your phones, check in on the 1 Million Cup app. You can find out more info about the presenters, give them feedback, etc., etc. We would like to welcome the Lafayette School of Business from St. Joe. Came down to visit us this morning, so thank you for being here. I would ask the first-timer questions, but I think you're all first-timers at 1 Million Cups, so thank you for being here. And I'm actually going to intro our panelists right now. Please tell us who you are and why you're here.
Hi. Good morning. I am Katie Castro, Director of Membership at Nonprofit Connect. Thanks again for having me.
Our second panelist is on the way, hopefully, so should be joining us shortly. And with that, we're going to start with our first presenter, which is David with Donate Your Change. Please give David a big round of applause.
Can you hear me now? Right. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to present today and seeing this class of students walks in. My background actually was in education. I was a school teacher and administrator for, well, more years than most of you have been around. So anyways, in that role, one of my responsibilities was in a private school in the Wichita, Kansas area, and had to raise money for the organization. When you're the CEO of a small nonprofit, that's one of the many hats that you wear. And so really born out of that challenge of trying to raise money, experiencing what I'll refer to as donor fatigue, both for the donors and for those who are asking the organization, this idea came about for Donate Your Change. So me, you've met, my partner lives in South Denver, in Parker, Colorado. He's a full stack programmer, has been writing code for over 20 years. He wrote code for the first secure online mortgage application in the real estate industry and sold that to Yahoo for a big figure with a lot of zeros after it. And so Brian really doesn't need to work for a living anymore, but he's a very gifted programmer, and I don't know what he'd do if he wasn't writing code because he's just very ADD. But he's a great co-partner with me in this enterprise. He's the chief architect for the software I'll be demonstrating for you today. Some of our other business partners and mentors that are assisting us with the rollout of this application. So let me ask you, what if every time in the last week when you went out to eat, filled your car up with gas, shared a cup of coffee with a friend, maybe bought something online, you also made a donation for a charity or nonprofit organization that you were passionate about? And more importantly, they didn't have to ask you to do it. Well, our software allows you to do just that by rounding up your everyday purchases and financial transactions to the nearest dollar and making tax-deductible contributions for a charity that you support. So companies like Lyft, Panda Express, you're familiar with these companies at a point-of-sale transaction. They may ask you as you check out, they'll say, do you want to round your purchase up today to support some charity or cause that they support as a company? You've probably all experienced that before. Companies like Acorns, Bank of America, they've been doing roundups for over 10 years now. Bank of America, anybody here familiar with the Bank of America roundup application that they have? A couple of you. So you can round up your credit and debit card purchases with them, and the roundups go into your savings account. I've heard that estimates anywhere from $3 to $8 billion Bank of America has created for people's savings accounts through their roundup application. Acorns creates roundups for your retirement investment. So our company really, looking at those two templates, Bank of America and Acorns, my partner wrote the code for this application. So the nonprofit space is a large space. In year 2015, a record $372 billion was donated in this country to nonprofits. Over 70% of that came from small monthly contributions. There are over 1.5 million registered nonprofit organizations in the U.S. So what our company is attempting to do is address two primary problems that nonprofit organizations face when raising money. One is the whole issue of donor fatigue. We can all relate to that lately when you think of all the hurricanes and natural disasters and things that have happened in this country where there are constant appeals for donations. And as a donor, you begin to feel just fatigued by the whole experience. The other issue is the aging donor base, because my generation, baby boomers, are the single largest giving demographic in the country today. But they're also retiring at the rate of 10,000 a day in the US right now. So we're attempting to eliminate this donor fatigue first and foremost by creating donations without having to ask. The donations are generated 365 days a year, 24/7 automatically. Every time I make a purchase, I'm rounding up for an organization I support. And I mentioned baby boomers now retiring at the rate of 10,000 a day. As they do, their capacity to give is going to be greatly curtailed, so it's very important for nonprofits and charities to begin to pivot toward younger donors. Specifically, Gen X and millennial donors. There are 92 million estimated millennials in the country today. They don't have a lot of discretionary income. I have 3 sons who are millennials. But they don't write checks. I don't even know if they have a checkbook. They do all of their banking online. App technology is the world they live in. They're very comfortable with that. So our giving platform, we think, is a great fit for that target audience. Our company is a B2B business, so we license the software directly to the nonprofits, and then they in turn market it to their donors through marketing materials that we make available for them. Currently, we have clients in 15 different states, 25 different cities, and we have plans to expand here in the next couple of weeks into Canada. Donate Your Change Canada is coming soon. Our goal is to raise over $300 million in the next 3 years for our clients. That's roughly 1 million Roundup accounts at just $1 a day, a very achievable goal. Going forward, we have a new domain we've purchased called Empower Your Change. We plan to use this to create automated roundups for things like Bank of America is doing, or Acorns. You create donations or roundups for people's savings accounts, retirement accounts, paying off student loans. These high school students over here, when you graduate from college, you'll probably have a few of those. What if you could round up your daily purchases and the roundups went to pay off your student loans? We see ourselves as an innovator in this whole fintech space. Donate Your Change. We are today's giving platform for tomorrow's donors. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Panelists, if you would, please take it away.
Where do you see yourself competing with others? Because Commerce Bank currently has something very similar to this, and it's basically, but their credit card is 1% that's given directly to nonprofit organizations.
Yeah, it's a little different platform, so we're creating revenue for donors really with over 18,000 banks and financial institutions as opportunities, because we're networked into this financial network that Intuit developed. Heard of Intuit before, developer of QuickBooks, so they have a network of over 18,000 banks and financial institutions that they assembled when they rolled out QuickBooks, and so we are fully integrated in that network, and so the nice thing is you don't have to be a member of Commerce Bank to round up. You can have a bank account with over 18,000 different banks and still round up for your charity of your cause.
So does it tie directly to your debit card or credit card?
Yeah, so what you do is you go into it's a web-based application. It's not an app from an app store, but you go to our website or to a separate URL we create for our nonprofit organizations, separate landing page. We call them microsites. But from that website, you create your Roundup account. There's a drop-down menu. From our website, you'll select the charity you want to support. You create a user profile, and it takes about 3 minutes to create your Roundup account in the system. The donor can set their data limit for whatever amount they're comfortable with. The minimum's $1 a day. The average Roundup account in our system right now is just a little under $2 a day right now. But once you create that Roundup account, you link it to whatever bank account you want to use. You can have multiple Roundup accounts, so I have 2 in the system. My checking account's linked to the software, and I have a credit card linked to it. Every transaction with those 2 accounts, though, rounds up automatically. And then the payment method for that is the roundups aggregate in the system, because credit card transaction fees would kill us if we were making 3-cent and 30-cent donations. So it aggregates the roundups until you get to $20. We batch at $20. Those $20 batches then are charged to whatever payment method you put into the system. In my case, it's my Southwest Visa Rewards card. I'll see a one-time charge for that $20 batch. Those batches then are deposited into an escrow account, if you will, a holding account, and then on the 15th of every month, we as an organization transfer all those batch donations out of that holding account into the bank account of the nonprofit that we're signed up with through an ACH deposit.
Are you reaching out to nonprofits to see if they want to be connected, or are we just inputting the ones that we want?
Well, both. I mean, we're open to, if you go to our website and you pull down the drop-down menu and don't see an organization that you're interested in. By the way, I don't know that we have any in the Kansas City area, so we'd love to, after today, get some referrals on that. But feel free to contact us through our website. Our contact information is there, and say, hey, I'd like to round up for organization X, Y, and Z. Would you? If you know somebody within the organization or are willing to make an introduction for us, that's great. So we're growing. Again, we're in 15 different states right now, 25 different cities, but our goal obviously would be to have clients in every state. But yes, so right now you have to select from the organizations that are licensing from us, but we're happy to add them all the time. So.
Are you asking for anything from nonprofits to be part of it?
Yes, we are. I mean, we're not a nonprofit company. We're a for-profit company. So we license the software to them. We take a percentage of whatever it generates for that organization. We have 3 different licensing fees, 10, 15, and 20%.
What's the percentage you would take from a nonprofit? Just because from me working in a nonprofit organization, if it's $20 a month, that is being, I mean, obviously every little amount makes a difference, but if you're expecting the nonprofit to put in some sort of funding?
No, again, it comes out of whatever it generates. So let's say a nonprofit signs with us. They have 100 people signed up, rounding up at $1 a day. That's $36,000 a year in roundups for that organization. So if their fee was 10%, we would take 10% of whatever it brought in for that organization. And we cover all the credit card transaction fees out of our fees.
We are going to turn it over to you guys for questions, so please get your hands up. I'll go ahead and get us started. Can you tell us specifically about a relationship you have with a nonprofit now and how that's going and what they're benefiting from?
My background was education. I started this to raise money, obviously, just for that particular school I was connected with. But there's a school in Denver called the Denver Street School. He's a former public school teacher there by the name of Tom Tillapaw, and he started this street school network. They're in pretty much every major metropolitan area now to work with kids who had dropped out or flunked out of school, who've been expelled for different reasons, the kind of kids that were the throwaways. So he started this in his own home, he's expanded it now, but the Denver Street School is an entire network across the country, and so they're one of our clients, and as a former educator, I'm particularly grateful to be able to partner with a nonprofit like that. So.
Question in the back.
Hi, nice presentation. Curious about a couple things. One, is there other revenue streams in the future? And 2, is this something you can turn on or off or set a limit on a monthly basis?
Yeah, the donor can turn it on and off anytime they want to. They can set their daily limit, which in effect creates your monthly and annual limit. So the minimum in our system right now is $1 a day you can set it at. So, for example, I have 2 bank accounts linked to the software. There are some days where I might have 6 or 7 transactions in one day. But if my limit set at $1 a day, I'll never round up more than $1 a day. As soon as I hit that threshold, it stops rounding up, resets for the next day.
This question in the center.
How easy would it be for a church to sign on to something like this?
We have some churches, not a lot. Pastors get a little bit nervous thinking people won't tithe to their church if they're rounding up. You just need to educate them a little bit more on that, because really what you're talking about, is $1 or $2 a day. It's just untapped revenue. So for a church like any nonprofit, they just sign the license agreement. They sign at which percent they want to sign at. So a 10% rate, we do charge a one-time sign-up fee of $2,500. 20% is just a $250. $2,500 for a 10% client, and $250 if they sign at the 20% rate. I was head of a nonprofit organization. Our fundraisers, we did product sales, cookie dough sales, gift wrap paper. Students nod their heads. They've all been a part of those things. We did jogathons and readathons, you name it. We did well to get 50% return on our investment, on those things. So even at 20% fee, they're still keeping 80 cents on every dollar. So we think what this will do, though, is enable nonprofits to bring new donors in. Particularly, I mentioned the millennials. I think for universities, this thing would be a gold mine. I'm just surprised we don't have more universities signed up yet, but think about KU, or I shouldn't say it in this room, K-State, or Wichita State, or some university that's contacting their alumni, their Gen X millennial alumni, and saying, hey, you know, because you get those calls. As soon as you graduate, they start calling you to make donations. But if they could just round up their daily purchases, it's money they're never going to miss. So we think this is a way to bring in untapped revenue for organizations from people that might not typically support them on a regular basis.
Question in the center.
Can you talk a little bit about your relationship with the financial institutions? You mentioned you can partner with banks, and I heard you say you tied it to your Southwest credit card. Which cards and banks are available?
Again, there's over 18,000 in the system. So Intuit developed that long ago for their clients who were using their QuickBooks application. Now, Intuit has sold that network of database of banks to a former executive in their company. He purchased it from them. It's a company called Finicity. They own and maintain that network of banks, and they charge us a fee to have access to that network. But the beauty of it is with 18,000 banks in the system, most donors are probably going to find a bank that they have an account with that they can link for this. And we can add banks. I say we. Finicity is willing to add them. They charge us a fee to add these institutions, but they're willing to add banks and institutions if they're not in the system.
Question in the center.
Yeah, we were actually just wondering, so you mentioned universities, and of course there's homecoming or scholarships or whatever. If someone's donating each day, from your case studies, do you see a donor fatigue challenge?
Not thus far. Now, we've only been in business a year and a half, okay? So I don't have a long trail of data to support, but the average roundup account in our system right now is about $2 a day. But I think in the last year and a half, I'm only aware of maybe 4 or 5 donors that have dropped out because the giving is just such an inconsequential level. And it's so easy. I mean, you set it and you forget it, I mean, quite literally. So, yeah, it's a very painless way to give.
Question in the back.
So I see this working on a personal level with like personal checking accounts and debit cards and whatnot. Is there a way for this to be formatted for businesses to donate to charities as well?
Yeah, we'd be happy to partner with businesses. You know, there are some companies that do have giving plans for their employees, and but certainly there is. Yeah.
Question up front.
Do you plan to track donor behavior by demographic, and do you think that that's you can monetize that data?
I would like to personally add, when they create a donor account in our system, they create a user profile. But all we ask is their phone number, their email address, and a physical mailing address so the organizations can receipt them. So the demographic information is very limited. I personally would like to have age demographics in there because I'd like to know, is this really working better with millennials? I had a prospective client ask me that because if they sign with us, they want to target 25,000 potential donors that they're aware of, they're in that age group. And I just don't have the data for them. I've talked to my partner about it. He says, I don't think it's a good idea to ask people to give you their age when they sign up. So,
Who are your competitors?
there are a couple that I'm aware of. One's called Bestow. They started about the same time we did with a lot more money. They're a Techstar company, and if you're familiar with Techstars, they started, though, with a business plan B2C. They were marketing directly to the end user, an app that you would download from them. That plan didn't work very well for them. So they're a B2B now as well. They're marketing directly to the nonprofits. But their model's a little different. Instead of taking a % of what it brings in, they're charging the organizations a flat monthly fee, kind of a SaaS model.
How many users do you have right now, and how do you plan to explode that number?
We're about 650 end users in our system right now, so we're just getting started with this. So plans for exploding that, one of this is through these independent sales reps. So for example, in Canada, we have an organization up there that's going to be the exclusive resellers of our software. They have a sales team of 5 people who are going to be doing this full time in the next year. So we have about a dozen or so independent reps spread out around the country that are marketing the software for us. So, for me, I think we need We need one very large client probably to really put us on the map. An organization like the American Heart Association, for example. We're talking with Goodwill of Denver, Colorado. There's stores in that area. If they sign with us, very likely it would roll out across the other Goodwill stores around the country. YMCA Pikes Peak region just signed with us. They're going to launch the end of November on Giving Tuesday. If it goes well for them, they said they'll introduce it to the other YMCA regions around the country. So we're anxious to see one of those large organizations get going.
Question here.
I've done some donations through Panda Express. Can you explain how your relationship with them, and are you all over the country with them, or?
No, I just use them as an illustration as a point-of-sale transaction that rounds up. But if you have a Roundup account in our system, let's say you've got a credit card linked to our system and you're supporting a local charity here. If you go through Panda Express, check out, and they say, do you want to round up today for the organization they support? You can say yes or no to that. But with our software, it's going to round up your transaction anyway and send the donation to the nonprofit that you support, as opposed to the one that Panda Express supports.
Question up front.
Hi, David. Thanks for presenting at Million Cups today.
Thanks.
So I'm a data privacy lawyer.
Okay.
You have to get data from people's bank accounts about their transactions so you can round it up. Talk about the data privacy challenge. You're giving access to people's accounts. What kind of levels of security, policy, and protection do you have for customers? Because you're getting data directly from their most sensitive accounts.
Well, we're actually not storing any of their data in our system, okay? So when you log in to create a Roundup account in our system, yeah. So when you log in, though, through that bank's online portal in our system. So you type in the name of the bank, it takes you to their online portal, you log into your account through their online portal. As far as credit card information, it's all encrypted in our system, so we're not storing credit card numbers in our system either. We went through a very rigorous security protocol into it before they would allow us access to that network of banks. Hired a company called Cigital, and they're an international company, but we went through a very rigorous 3-week kind of security screening process with them before they would greenlight us to be integrated into this system. So we have all the same security protocols in place for any online banking transaction, though.
Question from the panel.
2 questions. How many nonprofits do you currently have participating in this? And when you go to meet a nonprofit or you come into contact with a nonprofit, what is it you're telling them that wants them to get on board, knowing that they have to pay that sign-up fee or licensing fee before they actually see the donations coming to them?
Well, think about it, though. A 10% client would pay the one-time sign-up fee of $2,500. When we first launched this, we didn't charge a sign-up fee. What we soon found out was that these nonprofits, if there was no skin in the game, they'd sign the agreement and then they were very slow to do anything with it. So we said, you know, let's give them a little bit of incentive to market this to their donors, again, because they sign the donors up, we don't. That's their database. But even at $2,500, that's 4 or 5 Roundup accounts in our system at $1 a day would cover that cost practically. So it doesn't take long to cover their costs, but a $250 setup fee, let's say if they sign at the 20% rate, one donor could cover that in less than a year's time. Not a big expense up front. Not a lot of financial risk there.
Are you seeking only larger nonprofits?
Majority of our clients right now are smaller nonprofits. As I said, our biggest one to date is the Pikes Peak YMCA region, and they haven't launched yet. They're launching Giving Tuesday here in November. So large and small, our end game here, honestly, I want 1 million Roundup accounts in our system.
And how many nonprofits do you currently have participating? 60.
So when you form a relationship with a nonprofit, do you give them a toolbox to market to their users to get on your platform?
Yeah, we're working with a marketing firm in Wichita called the Strategy Group, and they developed an entire media suite of marketing materials that help our nonprofits roll it out. Keep in mind, though, some of these nonprofits are small organizations. They might have 2 or 3 people working in the office. No one with really any social media, marketing skills, things like that. So that's why we've networked with, or working with this marketing firm to try to give them some tools and capabilities that they just don't have budget and staffing to accommodate. Now, the YMCA, they're not going to need our help in marketing. They have their own marketing team and so forth.
Two-part question here. First part is, what is the vetting process that you currently have for your non-for-profits?
I'm sorry, the vetting process?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the second question is, how do you plan to kind of market the story that you currently have? What is your social media campaign currently?
The vetting process says they have to be a registered 501c3 nonprofit because the donations aren't tax deductible if they're not. So we do make sure that that is the case when the organizations sign up. And just for the donor comfort level, these microsites that we create for our nonprofits, they ask them to list how they plan to use the money on the microsite. So the donor can see on their landing page exactly where their roundup donations are going to go. I still think in the end, though, it's the donor's responsibility to vet and check out any organization you're giving money to. I don't see that as our primary responsibility, though. You know, if I'm going to donate for an organization, I need to do my due diligence. Now, you asked about the social media side of it. Yeah, so we have our own, oh, I mean for our clients or for our company? Okay, well, we have our own Facebook and Twitter, you know, channels that, and so we do try to promote what we're doing through those channels, you know. We're doing some search engine optimization kinds of things as well, try to get the word out about our, you know, to drive traffic to our website and things like that. But really, primarily, we've been growing right now mainly through word of mouth and through my independent reps, because they all know nonprofit charities, they have contacts in those fields. And so I think I'm really excited about Donate Your Change Canada. They have a sales team. It's just 5 individuals, but it's a big country. But they're spread out, and they've got a game plan in mind, and they're ready to rock and roll with this thing. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen in Canada with them.
Question on your left.
David, one of the things I really appreciate about 1 Million Cups is we get to see all different types of businesses, and we get to see them in different stages. You've presented previous 1 Million Cups before in other areas, and this is a business that's a little bit more mature than some of the others we see. For instance, it sounds like you feel like you have a minimum viable product. You have a solution, a technology, which is this giving platform. You've got that developed, and you're now at the point in this business where you're trying to scale, correct?
Exactly.
And we heard you say a few minutes ago that currently your primary way to grow and scale this business is through this network of independent, I think you called them independent sales reps.
Right.
I'd be curious, as you were making decisions, I don't know when you made the decision to scale that way. I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but we learn from entrepreneurs here in this environment. And as you were making that decision that that was the way you wanted to primarily scale, maybe what was 1 or 2 other options you considered that you said, no, that's not right for us. This is the right way to scale and grow the company?
Honestly, the initial decision to scale that way was a financially driven decision. We're a startup bootstrapping this thing. We had a seed round to raise $150,000, and that's basically what we've launched this business with. And so we didn't have a large budget. So having independent reps work straight commission was really about the only way we could see moving forward at this stage in our development. You know, if we do a Series A at some point, you know, hopefully, I'm hoping we won't have to do it, quite honestly. I hope that this thing scales rather quickly in the next 12 months, and we have all the capital we need to grow the business without having to sell off more equity in the company. So, but that was just a financial necessity that drove that decision.
David, thank you so much for presenting. Our final question, what can we as a community do to help you?
Yeah, no, I always appreciate that question. Just help get the word out. I'm going to have some business cards back here afterwards. I'll be back at the back table, but stop by and visit with me or take one of the cards with you. If you know of a charity in the Kansas City area that you really feel passionate about and would like to see them connect with our program, you know, send me an email or you'll have my contact information in the business cards. Check out our website first if you want to. But we would love to get some traction here in the Kansas City community. I grew up in Olathe, Kansas, so I'm from the Johnson County area, and my brother still lives here. My dad calls me a traitor. I shouldn't say this, especially this year, but I'm a Broncos fan now. I know. Yeah, I think I just lost a lot of business by saying that. So I lived in Colorado Springs for 7 years, and you can't hardly live in Colorado and not be a Broncos fan. I think there's a requirement after 12 months you either convert or you move. So, but anyway, no, I grew up in the Johnson County area and I have an affinity for this area. So if you can help spread the word, that would be great.
All right, thank you kindly. Let's go ahead and clap. Our second expert panelist snuck in. I'm going to let him introduce himself real quick.
Thank you. Steve Spengler, owner of Simple Science Juices. We have 4 locations here in town, 2 that we opened up in Omaha. Basically started up in 2015, so in 2 years we created 6 stores. And I'm really looking forward to both presenters, but we've done personal work with Breakout Kansas City, so looking forward to that.
Thank you so much. Let's do Mug Club. Can you please raise your hand if you have been to 1 Million Cups KC 10 or more times? Please put your hand down if you already have a mug.
Oh, he's close. Please tell us your name and why you come to 1 Million Cups.
Hi, my name is Jeff Howe. I come to 1 Million Cups to kind of keep an eye on the startup community. I've bought and sold a couple of small businesses, so I'm just kind of looking to see what's next.
Thank you.
All right, if you haven't already, be sure and go to our website, 1millioncups.com/Kansas City, and join the community. That way you will get all of our announcements. I have a special announcement coming up here in a couple weeks is Global Entrepreneurship Week. So from November 13th through the 17th, there will be over 150 events spanning a huge variety of topics. Almost all of them are free and open to the public and are down at Plexpod Westport Commons. Please, please, please grab one of these calendars. There's a whole bunch in the back. I have a whole bunch more. Or go to our website, gewkc.org, to register for events. 1 Million Cups that week. We will have our normal 1 Million Cups here on Wednesday morning. And then the following day on Thursday, we're having an alumni panel at noon down at Plexpod Westport Commons. So be sure and sign up for that event too. All right, let's have a warm welcome for our second presenter today, Matt with Breakout KC.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for having me, giving me the opportunity to speak with you all. Thanks for coming out on a school day as well, I believe. So yeah, let's give them a round of applause. This is a big deal. At Breakout KC, we give folks 60 minutes to do an escape room. I have 6, so I will try to speak a little bit quickly. Bear with me for a quick second. As a quick show of hands, how many of you guys like having fun? I hope I see most hands go up. And additionally to that, I think a more important question of how many of you all enjoy things that are meaningful with your friends and family and coworkers? Hopefully we have just as many hands. And then my last question, then I swear I won't make you raise your hands too much more, but how many of y'all have had the opportunity to do an escape room? Okay, so a fair amount. So for those of you who have done Breakout KC, I hope that you had a good time. If you didn't do Breakout KC, we're going to try to get you there at some point. But as mentioned in the introduction, my name is Matt. I'm the owner and founder of Breakout KC. We were Kansas City's first escape room. We were actually one of the first escape rooms in the country, the first 30 or 40. There's now over 2,000 and nearly 20 just in the Kansas City metro area alone. And so it's a new industry. We're about 3 years old now in the River Market, and then we just opened another location in Park Place over near Town Center, 117th and Knoll. Quick background, this is my wife and kiddos, Cora, Ben, Julianne, pumpkins, doing fun things. It's fall. This was a ton of fun. But I started Breakout right around the time that we started a family, so it's been a whirlwind of 4 years trying to get all of this going. It's been a blast doing it, though. We started Breakout KC in 2015. Since that time, we've expanded now. We're about to open up what was just our 6th location. We're opening in Cincinnati here in a couple months as well. But when we started the escape room, it was more of a, hey, this thing is really fun. I enjoy having fun. Let's have fun. That was the whole impetus. I was traveling. I saw it as a unique opportunity. I said, Kansas City needs something like this. As we started getting into it, though, it became the first obstacle is telling people, hey, I'm going to lock you in a room with your friends, and you're going to pay me to do it, and you try to get out of that room. Like, who wants to sign up for that? And people are like, nobody. Nobody wants to do that. And so from the get-go, one of the biggest things that we've had to overcome and try to figure out is the education of what an escape room actually is. Like David, thank you so much for presenting, David. I come from an education background as well. I was a high school guidance counselor here in the Kansas City area for a number of years. But trying to explain what we do. So on a very literal level, we take groups of up to 8 people and we lock you in a room and you have to solve a series of clues and codes and puzzles and break out of that room. That is literally what we do. Just like the Kansas City Royals literally take wooden pieces that are about this long and hit objects that are thrown towards them. That is literally what you do in baseball, right? So the greater question becomes, what do we really do? And at Breakout KC, this has kind of been the heart of why we exist, the heart of why we really push with customer service. And what we really do is we strive to give people shared experiences. The reason that we've had a focus on that is coming from an education background, coming from a ministry background. When I go and I have dinner with my folks, or have dinner with my friends, or have dinner with my work colleagues, we don't just sit there and eat food, right? We sit there and we eat food and we talk about things that we've shared together. We talk about things that make conversations great. And really, when you think about some of the most fruitful conversations and some of the most fruitful relationships you have, it's all built on the experiences that you have shared with those people. And so as we were kind of beginning Breakout KC nearly 3 years ago, we said, hey, how can we create great shared experiences? They're going to make people walk out of the room, not reach straight to their phones, but walk out of the room and actually have better dinner conversations and better work team dynamics because they visited Breakout. And that's kind of been our goal the whole time, is to create these really incredible shared experiences. So as we move forward, whether that is in the escape room world or whether that's in a different facet of family entertainment, what we always want to have a focus on is creating dynamic shared experiences so that you guys can take the Breakout experience with you as you leave. And then the big question, why we really do it. As I mentioned, just a quick story, when we first opened Breakout, one of the very first things that happened, being in the River Market, we're about a block and a half from Key Coffee in Lazarone. We had this group of teenagers come in and they did Breakout. They broke out with like 13 seconds left. And then I was gonna go get some coffee because I'd been working a lot and everyone loves coffee, right? Coffee's delicious. And they walked from Breakout all the way to this coffee shop. And these were like 16, 17-year-olds. And they walked 3 blocks without pulling the phones out of their pocket. And they were just talking to each other like, hey, that door popped open and this weird thing happened and this thing fell out of the sky. Like, how did we do that? And they're piecing this thing back together. We've had numerous times since then where we've had folks, sitting next to a conversation. They will hear people taking 3 hours to rehash what they just did in a 1-hour-long experience. And what's been really fun too, now that we've been open long enough, is to have groups, they'll say, man, we come here every Easter. We come here every Thanksgiving. This has become our family tradition of what we do to share time with each other. So at Breakout, the idea is to create shared experiences that are meaningful, shared experiences that you can take home with you. That being said, as we move forward, trying to get this all in 6 minutes, you can see that I did that. Congratulations to myself. But what we're really excited about is how we can take Breakout not just as an entertainment package, because it certainly is fun and it's entertaining, but one of the big things and our focus points right now is the re-education, not just for the early adapters, the folks that want to do Breakout because it was the new and exciting thing, but figuring out how we can market ourselves appropriately to folks who maybe still are a little bit nervous about going into a locked room with friends and family and actually having a fun and meaningful experience out of it. So thank you all so much for giving me the opportunity to share just a quick 6-minute summary of what we do and what we're looking forward to, and I look forward to answering any questions that you guys have about our company as well.
Big round of applause for Matt. Thank you. Expert panel, take it away.
Great job there. Well done. So a lot of my questions come about through scalability. So I see that you're in a couple new states. What staff is required to kind of to be in each one of those new states? And also, how often do you change your rooms? And how often can you do that and replicate that process in multiple other states?
Great, so a couple different questions, one about scalability, one about how often we change our rooms and what staffing looks like. And so, as I mentioned from the get-go, in doing our market research, escape rooms is actually something that started about 10 years ago in East Asia. Started as just kind of a hobbyist type thing. As folks brought it to the United States, there were some folks who did it strictly as a business venture, where it's let's get as many people through as quickly as possible, make as much money as we possibly can. We certainly have that to a degree, but what was really important for us was a high focus on customer service. And so when we do our escape rooms, we're one of the very few where we make sure that we have a customer service representative. We call them game guides. We have one game guide for every room that is run. The reason being is those game guides are on your side in the experience. They're answering clues, they're giving you hints, they're making sure that you don't get stuck. There's nothing worse than being an experience that's supposed to be entertaining and just not getting it. And it happens all of the time. You know, we create clues, codes, puzzles, and they're challenging. Like, the goal is to be challenged, but we don't want you to be challenged to the point that it's no longer fun and you give up, right? And all of us have that breaking point at some point. And so as we started training folks, you know, we bootstrapped Breakout KC from the start. And so we started with $75,000 of our own money to do this. And with that, there were 3 of us, and we were working every hour that we could to get this thing open. We were very fortunate, and then one of the first weeks that we were open, we had Sporting Kansas City come out and do Breakout KC, and then in doing so, post on their social media, and very quickly we went from non-existent to fully booked every weekend. And so that very first weekend that we were fully booked, me and my business partner were literally working 18-hour days back to back in addition to our other jobs. So the question of how do you train employees, how do you get folks to really buy and love what they do, was very easy at the get-go, because it was just like, hey, watch what I'm doing, and please try to mimic this as best as you can. The scalability has become a bit more challenging since that point, because we've taken a step back into more of a corporate role and really rely on our managers in order to train great staff members that are going to care and love and serve people well. Our second location was actually Honolulu, Hawaii. I come from a military background. That's where my grandfather was stationed for some time, had family out there. And so in Honolulu, we sent out our very best person. And it was very much a laissez-faire style of leadership at that point, as I said, hey man, I don't have a process by which you are going to go manage this thing. You've been here for 5 months. Please go and do that there, what you did here. There's mountains and beaches, so it should be a ton of fun. And really, we learned a ton through that process of having a great leader, a great manager go out and teach me, more than anything else, how to then train our new managers as we've sent them out into now Lawrence, second store in Kansas City, in Omaha, in Columbia, Missouri, and soon to be in Cincinnati. You had another question, and I'm blanking on it completely. Room switches. Yeah, so when we first started, room 13 was our first room. The goal initially was we're going to change rooms about once every year. It's been nearly 3 years now, and we have only switched 1 room out. The reason being, room 13 was our first room, is still our most booked room. As we were going along, as we got to the point where it's like, hey, we want to switch rooms out. We want to make sure that our enthusiast crowd who's done all of our escape rooms has the opportunity to come back and do more. Instead of tearing a room down and rebuilding a new one, what we actually did is we just rented more space in Breakout KC and went from a facility that had 4 rooms to a facility that had 6 rooms. We're at the point now where in Q1 of 2018, we will actually be taking out either room 13 or Szechuan Secret and putting in a whole new experience that will be our first escape room built for 12 people, built for some larger audiences that we're excited about. But you know, this again, the industry is big, and it's been here for 10 years. In the United States, it's been here for only about 3, and so we're still learning a lot. When we started, we would have sworn that we were going to switch rooms out every year, but we're to the point where it's like 3 years in, and we're like, okay, now we're starting to see this much of a decline with the bookings of this particular room. Perhaps it's time to switch that out. The only room that we've switched out was a casino-based room, and the only reason we did it is we just didn't think it was our best room. Even though it was the 3rd one we created, it was the first one we switched out because we just realized it wasn't the best representation of Breakout KC, and our data showed us that it actually, folks who did that room first had the lowest rebooking rate to come back and do other rooms. We want to make sure that we were giving people a great first experience.
Cool. Last 2 questions here. What is your retention rate per customer? Do you get a lot of new customers, or a lot of word of mouth, or a lot of people coming back? And then also, what is the cost per new city? So when you go to look at a rental property in, say, Omaha, what are you designating as that price for that new city?
Yeah, so the first question as far as our customer retention, a quick note again for those of you who have not had the opportunity yet to do one of our rooms at Breakout KC, is once you play a room, there's really not a lot of reason to play that room again. And so per room, the customer retention is almost 0, except we have this one guy who keeps bringing his first dates back in order to impress them. It's hilarious. Hopefully you're not in this room, because that would be terribly embarrassing. But other than that, we have a number of folks who have come back and done all 6 rooms. As far as people who come back and do another room, our records right now and our data shows that about 30% of our customers are coming back. That being said, our price point is not inexpensive. You know, it's $30 per person as a family. If you're coming as a group of 8, that's $240. We realize that that's not not inexpensive by any means. And so what we're starting to see is that we're the type of activity that a lot of families will do once every 6 months or once every year. So being new enough, it's hard to fully know that data, but as far as the first 2.5 years of being open in Kansas City specifically, we can see that about 30% of our customers are in fact coming back within a year. And then as far as expansion, as I mentioned, we got Breakout KC open, at least the first room of Breakout KC open. We put in $75,000 of our own money. That was when we were doing all of the work ourselves. I was not spending time with my, at the time, 1 child, now 3 children. And so we've taken a step back. We actually have a 40,000 square foot warehouse in Kansas City where we pre-produce all of our props, do a lot of our building and construction on site, and then we'll actually take it out to new locations and install it. It's pretty neat. We'd love to have you guys out to our 40,000 square foot warehouse in order to see that because it's a lot of fun. But generally speaking, our new locations cost us anywhere from $200,000 to $400,000 to put in. And a lot of that is because you walk into a room, it might not look very high tech, but we hide a lot of technology and we actually create a lot of the technology that goes into our rooms. But that depends on, like, Cincinnati is going to be a nearly 4,000 square foot space, whereas we can install a space in as little as 2,000 square feet. So, great questions. Thank you.
All right, we're going to turn it over to you guys for questions. Please get those hands up. I'll get us started. How do you actually go about building your rooms and creating your puzzles?
Yeah, so I ran track in college at the University of Kansas, and my wife is still upset because I tricked her into thinking I was a jock when I'm in fact a big nerd. And so in building all of our clues and codes and puzzles, those are actually things that I've built myself. We now have a team of folks that help out with that, but of the 12 experiences and rooms that we have, I've built 11 of those entirely. One of them's been built by our manager who we sent to Hawaii that I just told you about a little bit ago. But really, when you're looking for ways to hide things in plain sight, once that becomes your focus, you'll find that it's actually, not I want to say easier to do than you would anticipate, but there's a lot of inspiration you can get from TV shows, a lot of inspiration you can get from your daily lives, just from looking around and seeing timers and clocks and things going on. You're like, man, there's so much that you can do just in the daily life, and having a new angle is really helpful in order to see those things. So.
Question in the back.
Yep.
Nice job. So you were first to market, or one of the first to market, which is great. I feel like every other week in Kansas City, I'm driving by somewhere and there's a breakout room coming soon. How do you keep yourself fresh, and how do you compete against what seems like a market that's going to be very saturated very quickly?
Absolutely, yeah. It's been fascinating to see that because, again, our facilities are not inexpensive by any means. And our first one even being just to start, get our first room open, $75,000 was not inexpensive. What we found is a lot of mom and pop, and I don't mean that in any negative connotation at all, but you can go to Home Depot and grab a dozen locks and go to Hobby Lobby and grab some baskets and open an escape room. And we've seen people do that in the Kansas City area, and we've also seen people fail in doing that in the Kansas City area as well. And so being first to market was tremendously helpful for getting our name out there, kind of being the foundation for the Kansas City escape room community. That being said, there was as many as 22 escape rooms in the metro at one point. That number has already dipped down to about 16 or 17. And so first to market was important. We were first to market in 2 of our 6 or of our 5 metros. But what's as important, or perhaps more important than being first to market, is also being the best in market. And so, you know, we're a type of company where we're never going to just stop. We're never going to be satisfied with just being average. And so the reason that we have a 30,000 or 40,000 square foot warehouse is, you know, we were getting these picture frames from thrift stores and putting them up as decor. But believe it or not, when people are at a bachelorette party and they've had a little bit of liquid courage and you tell them they have to break out of the room, they will do everything they can to break out of the room, be it physical force or not. And so we were going through half a dozen picture frames every week. At that point, we said, we need to build an indestructible picture frame. And so we went to a furniture company in Kansas City, said, can you build us a single piece indestructible picture frame? And they built it, and all of a sudden we didn't have to replace picture frames anymore. And so from that point, we said, well, can we build an indestructible this thing and an indestructible that thing? To the point that we started giving that furniture company so much business that we just bought the furniture company so that we could start making our own items and props. And so with that being said, if you were to look right now at probably the top 5 highest producing escape rooms in the country, we've worked with probably most of them in either producing rooms for them as well, and those are things that we can't talk about super publicly, right, or producing props for them. And so in the escape room community, we're also well known as one of the largest producers of escape room props all over the world.
Question in the center.
So
one of the toughest things in entrepreneurship is work-life balance.
Yep.
You mentioned earlier that when you were starting this, 18-hour days along with a full-time job, and presumably you're probably still pretty darn busy, and you've got 3 children and a wife. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how you manage work-life balance, and then also, what is the end game for you with this business?
Absolutely. So, you know, you hear the sad stories of entrepreneurs all the time of working the 18-hour days, and that is accurate. I think entrepreneurs tend to blow that out of proportion, perhaps just a little bit. But that was the matter of fact for the first couple months while we were trying to get ready, right? Because using our own money, we wanted to get open as quickly as possible so that we would stop bleeding money. I'm fortunate, and you know, my other business owner didn't have this at the point. I'm fortunate that I was married, and I think that I had a kid at the time, because that gave me a great reason to want to go home. And to want to have a balance. As soon as we got to a point where we were sustainable, where we were making good money, the very first thing that we did was hire really, really great people. And at the end of the day, you know, you have to make that decision of, do I want to make this much money and not have a social life and have my wife be angry with me every night? Or do I want to make this much money and get to work alongside some incredible people who can not just carry that burden, but actually do things a lot better than I can in the first place? And so about 1.5 years ago is when we actually decided to get office space, get corporate headquarters, and bring on some incredibly talented folks who are in it with us and are doing great things alongside us. And I don't make as much as I did, you know, back then, but I also get to be home by 5:30 almost every night. So that's been great. And then your second question, I apologize. The end game, of course, yeah. So you know, Ryan, who's over our operations, I'm over kind of the creation and our personnel. He would tell you, obviously, to never start a business without the end in mind, whereas I started this really as an enthusiast and thinking, gosh, this is a great tool for building relationships. This is going to be a great tool for education and for ministry. I didn't have an end goal in mind other than to have a ton of fun and to serve people well. That being said, now that the escape room industry is a little bit more planted, we can see kind of where this is going. We can see that places like Disney are getting into the game. We can see that major movie and video game releases are starting to have escape rooms as part of their release. So the end game, I wouldn't call it an end game necessarily just yet, but I think the transition or the pivot point is trying to really make the right connections with those folks and become even more well-known as one of the industry leaders in this. We're the only escape room in the country to be ranked in the top 10 by both TripAdvisor and USA Today. And actually just last week, we had our Lawrence location also ranked in the top 10 by USA Today. So now we're the only escape room in the country with 2 locations in the top 10. So we're trying to make sure that as people create these kind of pivot points where they're creating perhaps a Star Wars based escape room, that they try to think of, okay, we know that we want to do a Star Wars based escape room, let's go to the experts of who makes great escape rooms and see if they'll partner with us. And we've had some opportunities to do some pretty neat things and some pretty neat design builds for other companies kind of in that sector. So I think that's kind of, in addition to opening escape rooms, hopefully, that's kind of where we're headed as far as partnering with the bigger businesses that have probably more lasting power and can really take this and blow it up to a whole other level.
Question down front.
Yes, sir.
I have a few of my 8 children have been in one of your rooms and thoroughly enjoyed it. I really don't have a question. What I have is a recommendation. You're likely to make this presentation again. I'm a visual person. I recommend that you put a GoPro on a motorized mount in one of your rooms, load it up with your own employees, and have them solve it so that all this real estate in the background became an actual video of somebody solving the problem. I think that would be more beneficial for you so that I can visualize what you're doing. All I have are your words. I want to visualize it.
I appreciate that, and I think that's a great point and something I'd love to speak to for a quick second, and kind of an ask of mine as well for perhaps other advice. As I mentioned during the presentation, probably our biggest challenge is education of what we do. And one of the reasons that that's been so challenging is we really try to keep our rooms very secretive, right? There's something to the mystery of what you're getting into. People are like, what is this thing? You're like, well, you're about to find out. You know, I'm going to be in Truman's library. What am I going to do? You'll see. And so we want to find a way in order to keep that intrigue and keep the mystery of our rooms. But that being said, I'm fully aware that we have to find a way to show folks what it is that we actually do, other than just my words. And so that has been the point of contention and conversation within our marketing team for months now. And I think maybe this is an answer, but again, we're about to recycle a room. We're about to fade out. And what we're hoping to do with that room is actually do a full walkthrough of what an escape room is, to kind of show people what they're getting into, because it also isn't going to ruin it for folks. But as you're thinking through this from an outside perspective, ideas like, I mean, you've hit nail on the head of like the very most challenging thing that we wrestle with, of how to do that appropriately without ruining the experience for guests.
Or put a GoPro on some drunk people that do it. Get some good footage.
Or we can do that as well. It'll be a shaky GoPro, but.
All right, question in front.
So coming from the education world, have you considered the market of the kits and the scenarios where you buy, like Breakout EDU,
Yep.
so for PD and for classes and clubs to do team building?
Yeah, so Breakout EDU is a box that educators can purchase that comes, it's essentially the video game console, right? And so what I mean by that is that you purchase a box from this organization called Breakout EDU. Its founder is James Sanders, who was funded by Google. It's an incredible organization, and what it allows teachers to do is to create their own escape room scenarios within a classroom to encourage students to really be focused and want to solve these clues, puzzles, problems in a classroom setting in order to break out. For the students that were like me, who maybe didn't want to just do math problems, it gives them a reason to want to do the math problems because there's something in that box at the end that they want to get and they want to win, right? If you tell people you have the opportunity to win, more often than not, they're going to do it. And so we actually got to have quite a few conversations with James Sanders as Breakout EDU was getting off the ground. We were one of the only escape rooms to be doing that. And we actually just about 4 weeks ago partnered with William Jewell. And we had 12 area high schools that used Breakout. We have a mobile escape room called the Get Out Games. It's the largest mobile escape room on earth. It's a 53-foot full semi-truck tractor trailer that we can bring on site to companies, businesses, schools, right? And so we're in the middle right now of working with the school district to do that as a essentially final exam, or really more as like a celebration to end the final exams of a school that has a high focus on Breakout EDU. But I honestly cannot think of a more perfect integration with education than what we do, because it is a motivating factor for students to want to figure things out. And that's the whole point of education, not so much in just giving folks information, but also giving them the desire to want to learn. And I think Breakout is a way to do that. So we're pumped about those relationships, having created the Get Out Games, which we just launched about 4 or 5, I guess it'd be about 2 months ago now, 3 months ago at this point. But that's something that we've already taken to school districts, and that's something that schools can use as either something for their students or staff, but something that's fun, but also teaches critical thinking. Get Out Games is actually 2 groups of 6 at a time, and it's our only experience that's competing rooms. So you're not just competing against time, you're also competing against each other, which is a lot of fun. So, yep.
Question on your left.
Yeah, so with the whole Breakout KC, I've never been before, so I'm not very familiar with the process. But we plan to go. But how many employees do you have like per building? And in a manager, what do you look for with the qualifications of a manager to run one of your buildings?
Great question. So at Breakout KC, we have around 25 employees. Some of them are full-time, some of them are part-time. I'll say as well, just because I think the Kansas City startup community is amazing. But we offer full benefits to our full-time employees. We offer a 401k, we offer health, dental. We like to take care of our employees because we expect our employees to take care of our people that we serve, right? And so our busiest days are Fridays and Saturdays, and so on any given Friday and Saturday, we have about 20 staff that are working on those days. As far as what we look for in a manager, that's an interesting and tricky question, because Breakout in any given day is, of course, a high focus on customer service, and that's probably more than anything else, is someone who loves to serve and loves to love other folks. But more than that, Breakout, it's an hour-long escape room, followed by a quick outro, which takes up about 5 minutes. And then you have literally 5 to 10 minutes to reset this entire room and get it ready for your next intro that you're gonna do. So it's like this point where you can relax and run the room and have fun, followed by absolute panic for about 15 minutes to get these things done, followed by the opportunity to relax. And on a Saturday, believe it or not, again, we have these groups that have had some liquid courage, or not, just groups that are super excited about Breakout. They break stuff all the time, like really often. So we might have this $10,000 prop that's super high tech, and someone might come in and literally rip it in half. And we're not gonna have the opportunity to reinstall that entire prop in that 5-minute stretch. And so our managers are then tasked with recreating a whole new set of clues or a new puzzle that they can pull out of the sky to replace that in order to have that room function for the rest of the day before we can have someone come in at midnight and fix that room. So our managers have to be creative. They have to be good with like woodworking and general repair type stuff, but more importantly than anything else, they have to have the capacity to love and serve people really well and have a heart for service, because we ask a lot of our staff and we ask a lot of our managers in order to pour into our staff. But we're looking for great employees, and so if you're interested, come chat with me afterwards.
Okay, final question. What can we as a community do for you?
I would love feedback into, we're at that point 2.5 years in Kansas City, a little less than that in other places, but for those of you who haven't done escape rooms, and this is my genuine ask, I would love to know why. I'd love to know why you have not done it yet, and I promise, I'm an unoffendable person. So if you're like, I haven't done it because it looks dumb, that's totally fine. I would love to know why you haven't done it, because we've gone through and we've captured enthusiasts, and we've captured first to market, and we've captured the immediate friend network of those who were first to market. And now we're at this point, we're like, okay, we have served 250,000 folks in the Kansas City area, which means that we have done less than 10% of the metro. How do we get that other 90%? And so as far as what you can do for me, one, obviously, we would love to have folks come to Breakout KC. And if, hypothetically speaking, if that were the case, there is a discount code in order to do that right on here, and we have some business cards with that. But I think more so than that, I'm going to have some business cards, we'll say on this table right back here. And I would love to hear why you haven't come. And I mean that genuinely. That would be more helpful than anything else that you can do, because I'm not going to pester you and say, well, you need to come, but I want to know why, so that we can figure out how to appropriately market and get you guys in the door, because I genuinely believe once you get in the door, you're going to love it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Okay, that wraps it up for this week. Join us next week for Drink Local, Think Global, and FIO. See you next week.